course, we have a blacked out screen, and the audio is going to sound different as my Blue Yeti microphone took a huge fucking shit, and the USB port is no longer functional. I am recording on my iPhone, so my apologies for the subpar audio. I know it's not up to the standard that you all are used to. This evening, though, we will be delving into the true crime case of American serial killer Samuel Little. Here we go. Samuel Little was an American serial killer of women who confessed to committing 93 murders between 1970 and 2005. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program has confirmed his involvement in at least 60 murders, the largest number of confirmed victims for any serial killer in American history. Little provided sketches for 26 of his victims, although not all have been linked to known murders. Little was born Samuel McDowell on June 7th of 1940 in Reynolds, Georgia. His mother, Bessie May Little, was a teenage prostitute who had abandoned him. Authorities believe that she might have given birth to him while she was incarcerated. The census from the year Little was born said Bessie May worked as a maid and that his father was 19-year-old Paul McDowell. Soon after his birth, Little's family moved to Lorain, Ohio, where he was brought up mainly by his grandmother. He attended Hawthorne Junior High School, where he had problems with discipline and achievement. By his own account, he began having sexual fantasies about strangling women as a child, starting when he saw his kindergarten teacher touch her neck. As a teenager, he collected true crime magazines depicting the choking of women. In 1956, after being convicted of breaking and entering into a property in Omaha, Nebraska, Little was held in an institution for juvenile offenders. His mother was listed on the booking card as whereabouts unknown. Little moved to Florida to live with his mother in the late 1960s. By his own account, he was working at various times as a cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant. He said then began traveling more widely and had more run-ins with the law, being arrested in 8 states for crimes that included driving under the influence, fraud, shoplifting, solicitation, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and rape. Little took up boxing during his time in prison, referring to himself as a former prize fighter. In 1961, Little was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain. He was released in 1964. By 1975, he had been arrested 26 times in 11 states for crimes including theft, assault, attempted rape, fraud, and attacks on government officials. In 1982, Little was arrested in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and he faced charges for the murder of 22-year-old Melinda Rose LaPree, who had gone missing in September of a grand jury declined to indict him for her murder. However, while under investigation, Little was extradited to Florida and tried for the murder of 26-year-old Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was found in September of 1982. Prosecution witnesses identified Little in court as a person who spent time with Mount on the night before her disappearance. Due to mistrust of witness testimonies, Little was acquitted in January of 1984. He moved to California, where he stayed in the vicinity of San Diego. In October of 1984, he was arrested for kidnapping, beating, and strangling 22-year-old Laurie Barrows, who did survive. 1 month later, he was found by police in the backseat of his car with an unconscious woman, also beaten and strangled in the same location as the attempted murder of Barrows. Little served 2.5 years in prison for both crimes. Upon his release in February of 1987, he immediately moved to Los Angeles and committed at least 10 additional murders. Little was arrested on September 5th of 2012 at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, and extradited back to California to face a narcotics charge, after which authorities used DNA testing to establish that he was involved in the murders of Linda Alford, killed on July 13th of 1987, Guadalupe Opadaca, sorry if I butchered that woman's name, killed on September 3rd, 1987, and Audrey Everett, killed on August 14th of 1989. All 3 women were killed and later found on the streets of Los Angeles. He was extradited to LA, where he was charged on January 7th of 2013. A few months later, the police said that Little was being investigated for involvement in 3 dozen murders committed in the 1980s, which until then had been undisclosed. In connection with the new circumstances in Mississippi, the LaPree murder case was reopened. In total, Little was tested for involvement in 93 murders of women in many states. Little was tried for the murders of Alford, Nelson, and Opadaca in September 2014. The prosecution presented the DNA evidence as well as testimony of witnesses who were attacked by the accused at different times throughout his criminal career. On September 25th of 2014, Little was found guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. On the day of the verdict, Little continued to insist on his innocence. Before his death, Little was serving a sentence at California State Prison, Los Angeles County. On November 19th of 2018, Little confessed to the 1996 fatal strangulation of Melissa Thomas. On November 13th of 2018, Little was charged with the 1994 murder of Denise Christie Brothers in Odessa, Texas, Texas Ranger in May of 2018. Little pleaded guilty to the murder of brothers on December 13th and received another life sentence. The Ector County, Texas District Attorney and Wise County, Texas Sheriff's Office announced on November 13th that Little had confessed to dozens of murders and may have committed more than 90 across 14 states between 1970 and 2005. On November 15th of 2018, the Russell County, Alabama District Attorney announced that Little had earlier that month confessed to the 1979 murder of 23-year-old Brenda Alexander, whose body was found in Phoenix City, Alabama. On November 16th of 2018, Macon, Georgia sheriffs announced that Little had credibly confessed to the 1977 strangling murder of an unidentified woman and the 1982 strangling murder of 18-year-old Fredonia Smith. In the fall of 2018, Little confessed to the 1982 murder of 55-year-old Dorothy Richards and the 1996 murder of 40-year-old Daisy McGuire. Both of their bodies were found in Louisiana. On November 19th of 2018, Harrison County, Mississippi Sheriff Troy Peterson said that Little had confessed to strangling 36-year-old Julia Critchfield in the Gulfport area in 1978 and dumping her body off of a cliff. On November 20th, 2018, Lee County, Mississippi law enforcement officials announced that Little had admitted to killing 46-year-old Nancy Carol Stevens in Tupelo. Y'all, my spelling, I'm telling you what, or my pronunciation rather. Anyway, a town in Mississippi in 2005, and that the case would be presented to a grand jury in January of 2019. On November 21st, 2018, Richland County, South Carolina authorities announced that Little had confessed to murdering 19-year-old Evelyn Weston, whose body was found near Fort Jackson, South Carolina in 1978. Little confessed to having killed 20-year-old Rosie Hill in Marion County, Florida in 1982. On November 27th of 2018, the FBI announced that a violent criminal apprehension program team had confirmed 34 of Little's confessions and was working to match the remainder of Little's confessions to known murders or suspicious deaths. Little began making the confessions in exchange for a transfer out of the Los Angeles County Prison in which he was being held. One included his confession to a previous cold case homicide in Prince George's County, Maryland, previously one of only 2 homicide cases in that county with unidentified victims. In December of 2018, Little was indicted for strangling Linda Sue Boards, 23 years old, to death in May of 1981 in Warren County, Kentucky. Her body was found on May 15th, 1981, near U.S. Route 60. One of Little's victims was identified in December of 2018 as Martha Cunningham of Knox County, Tennessee, was 34 years old when Little murdered her in 1975. On May 31st, 2019, in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, prosecutors announced indictments with 4 counts of aggravated murder and 6 counts of kidnapping that accuse Little of killing Mary Jo Payton in 1984 and Rose Evans in 1991 in Cleveland. Both victims were strangled and dumped. The body of Rose Evans, age 32, was found on August 24th, 1991, in a vacant lot on East 39th Street. She left her home of Binghamton, New York, when she was 17. Evans had been strangled, according to coroner Elizabeth Balraj. As for Payton, an anthropologist had to create a model of what she looked like, but she remained unidentified until 1992, when Cleveland put her thumbprint in the FBI database and got a match. Little picked up Payton at a bar near East 105th and Euclid Avenues. He described her as a short, plump woman in her 20s with brown hair. Little confessed to killing another Cleveland woman in 1977 or 1978. The woman murdered in 1977 was found on March 18, 1983, in Willoughby Hills, Ohio, according to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. She was likely African American and somewhere between 17 and 35 years of age. The woman's body had been dumped down a grassy slope near a fence in a wooded area just off the interstate. When her body was found by a man walking by with his dog, only her skeleton, some clothing, and jewelry remained. Little confessed to killing 1 woman in Akron, Ohio, 2 in Cincinnati. One of the bodies was dumped outside of Columbus, Ohio, and 1 woman he met in Columbus and disposed of in Kentucky. Of the 2 women Little murdered in Cincinnati, one was identified as Anna Stewart, age 33, whose body was dumped in Grove City, Ohio. Stewart was last seen on October 6th of 1981, getting out of a cab at General Hospital to see her sister, who was in the hospital, now University of Cincinnati Academic Health Center. She was killed on October 11th. He killed the other woman between 1980 and 1999. The Jane Doe was anywhere from 15 to 50 years of age. The details of her age and the date of her murder are unclear. She was African American, slender, wore glasses, and lived in the Over-the-Rhine neighborhood of Cincinnati with a heavy female Hispanic. Little left her beside a cigarette billboard in Ohio. On June 7th of 2019, Little was indicted in Hamilton County, Ohio, for murdering the 2 women who were killed in Cincinnati. Little had drawn portraits of many women he killed. These portraits were released by the FBI in hopes of someone identifying the women. At least 1 portrait solved a cold case in Akron, Ohio. In November of 2020, Little confessed to 2 Florida murders, one of which another man had been wrongfully convicted. On April 22nd, Mississippi River in 1990 was identified as 30-year-old Zena Marie Jones. Confirmed victims of Samuel Little. Little admitted to 93 different murders in total, and 60 deaths have been formally connected to him by police. The majority of Little's victims were prostitutes, drug addicts, or homeless individuals, and most of them were female. He claimed that he thought these persons would leave fewer clues for authorities to find and leave fewer persons to search for them. Despite the broad scope of his offending, Little was charged with and convicted of only 8 murders in total. Annie Lee Stewart, age 32, was murdered on October 11th, 1981 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Little strangled her and disposed of her body in the woods behind some apartments off Queen Anne Place in Grove City, Ohio. Little was convicted of her murder on August 23rd of 2019. Mary Jo Payton, 21 years of age, was murdered sometime in 1984 after she encountered Little at a bar in Cleveland, Ohio. Little claimed that he and Payton left the bar together and that he took her to an abandoned factory. He choked her there before throwing her body down a basement staircase. 2 workers from a nearby company discovered her dead on July 3rd, 1984, a few weeks later. Little was also convicted on August 23rd of 2019 of her murder. Carol Linda Alford, aged 41, was murdered by Little in Los Angeles, California. Authorities discovered Little's first DNA match on her underwear and under her fingernails. On July 13th of 1987, her body was discovered in a Los Angeles alley. From the waist down, she was nude. Her daughter recognized her body. She had been strangled to death, an autopsy indicated. She also experienced other wounds, such as a punch-related head injury from blunt force. Little was found guilty of this crime on September 25th of 2014. Audrey Nelson Everett, age 35, was found in a dumpster behind a nightclub and restaurant in Los Angeles, California on August 14th of 1989. There was nothing found that could be used to identify her body, which was naked from the waist down. She had been repeatedly hit on the head before being forcefully strangled, according to an autopsy. DNA linked Little to the crime, and he was convicted on September 25th, 2014. Guadalupe Abudaga, age 46, was found on September 3rd, 1989, at an abandoned auto repair shop in Los Angeles after a boy kicking a soccer ball against the building peered into the windows and saw her body. Authorities determined that Little kneeled on her chest and strangled her with his hands, causing her to have a seizure. She was nude from the waist down and had blood in her anal cavity as well. DNA linked Little to the crime, and he was convicted on September 25th, 2014. Zena Marie Jones, aged 30, was a woman found murdered in West Memphis, Arkansas on July 28th of 1990 after going missing on July 6th from Memphis, Tennessee. On the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River, close to the shore, and about 8 feet from the river's mile marker 722.2. A fisherman discovered the victim. Little admitted to killing her and provided a sketch in 2018. He claimed she was a prostitute who was between the ages of 28 and 29, and that he had picked her up at a Memphis motel. As a Memphis police car passed them, he choked her while they were in his car. He then dropped the victim into the river once he entered Arkansas and pulled up to a bridge. On August 23rd of 2019, he was found guilty of her homicide. She was identified in April of 2022 after her family noticed a resemblance between the composite sketch drawn by Little and Jones. Rose Evans, age 32, was murdered in Cleveland, Ohio on or around August 24th of 1991. Little encountered Evans while driving and offered her a ride. Then, in an abandoned area, he strangled her in his car. He was convicted of her murder on August 23rd, 2019. Denise Christie Brothers, aged 32, was a mother of 2 who was found killed in Odessa, Texas on February 2nd of 1994. Brothers had been reported missing on January 1st of that year. According to District Attorney Bobby Bland, she had been strangled. Little pleaded guilty to killing her, receiving his 4th life sentence on December 13th of 2018. Little had a longtime girlfriend, Aurelia Dorsey, since deceased, who supported them both through shoplifting for years. On May 28th of 1971, he was arrested in Cleveland with his girlfriend at the time, Lucy Madero, and they were charged with robbery of a gas station. While in jail, Madero confided in her cellmate Dorsey that she would be testifying against Little in the subsequent robbery case. In 1972, when the case went to trial, Madero testified against Little, but his defense team was able to plan for it with the help from information passed on by Dorsey. Little was eventually found not guilty. Dorsey and Little were together until she died of natural causes, which was a brain hemorrhage in Los Angeles in 1988. Little himself died on December 30th of 2020 in a Los Angeles County area hospital. Although California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation sources indicate no cause of death, Little suffered from diabetes, heart problems, and other conditions. He was also known as the choke and stroke killer. What a gross name. I find it probably not at all random that his choice of victims were prostitutes, as he grew up with a mother who was also in that industry. We know with a lot of serial killers, some of this goes back to their childhood, and a lot of these guys hate their mothers, but he killed a hell of a lot of people. Just another, crazy motherfucker. We've got a lot of them out there. My apologies also for anyone that's been listening to the Amityville Horror over the last few weeks. I have unfortunately not had enough extra time to keep reading chapters of that. My work schedule has been very busy, and I am just worn out at the end of the day. I'm not really sure at this point if I will continue to read chapters or if I will just do a synopsis video of the entire book for anybody that wants to know how it ends, which I think most of us probably do. It's a very well-known case. But I hope this video finds all of you happy and healthy. The highest compliment you can pay to the channel is a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. We are trying to get this baby on the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully I'll have my microphone replaced in the next week or so, and we can get back to business as usual. Thank you guys so very much. Have a wonderful evening and sweet dreams, everybody.